Think about your favorite book series. Now, imagine if Book 1 was written by an Egyptian prince, Book 2 written hundreds of years later by a king in Jerusalem, Book 3 by a rugged fisherman, and the final chapter by a political prisoner on a remote Mediterranean island. They speak different languages, they live eras apart, they never meet. Logically, the plot should be an absolute mess. Yet this is exactly how the Bible was constructed. 66 separate books written over a span of 15 centuries by kings, peasants, doctors, and exiles. But when you bind them together, they form a single, unbroken narrative arc. How did a collection of ancient, scattered texts survive wars, empires, and systematic destruction to become the most printed, translated, and debated book in human history? To understand the Bible, we have to stop looking at it as a single book and start looking at it for what it actually is, a library of survival. Our story begins in the deserts of the Middle East, roughly 3,500 years ago. The first part of the Bible, the Old Testament, wasn't written on paper. It was scratched onto animal skins and papyrus in ancient Hebrew and Aramaic. For centuries, this wasn't one book. It was a heavy chest of scrolls. The Jewish people divided it into three main parts: the Torah, the Law, the Nevi'im, the prophets, and the Ketuvim, the writings. The narrative arc of these scrolls is a roller coaster. It moves from cosmic origins in Genesis through the brutal liberation of a nomad tribe from Egypt to the rise and devastating fall of the Kingdom of Israel. When Babylon invaded Jerusalem in 586 BC, they burned the temple. The scrolls should have vanished into history right there. But instead, scribes in exile meticulously copied them, clinging to a single recurring theme woven through every text. A promised deliverer is coming to fix a broken world. By the time Alexander the Great conquered the known world, Greek became the global language. The ancient Hebrew scrolls had to adapt or die. In Alexandria, Egypt, Jewish scholars translated their scriptures into Greek. This version, called the Septuagint, changed everything. It took a localized tribal narrative and plugged it directly into the bloodstream of the global empire.
Then came the turning point. A first-century Jewish teacher named Jesus of Nazareth enters the scene. He doesn't write a single page himself, but his life, death, and his followers' radical claim that he rose from the dead triggered a literacy explosion. Suddenly, the story moves at breakneck speed. Followers like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John write the Gospels, biographies of Jesus tracking his life. A former persecutor named Paul travels the Roman road system, planting underground communities and mailing them letters of strategy and theology. Unlike the Old Testament, which took over a millennium to write, the entire New Testament, 27 books and letters, was fired out in a frantic, roughly 50-year window. Written in Koine Greek, the everyday street language of the Roman Empire, it was designed to spread fast, copied by hand by ordinary people under the constant threat of Roman execution. By the 4th century, the Roman Empire stopped fighting Christianity and adopted it. But this created a massive logistical nightmare. Across the empire, different churches were using different letters and scrolls. How do you decide what actually belongs in the official collection? This process is called establishing the canon. Contrary to popular internet myths, this wasn't a shadowy conspiracy at the Council of Nicaea, where books were voted out based on politics. It was a centuries-long organic filtering process. To make the cut, a text had to meet 3 strict criteria. Apostolic origin. Was it written by an eyewitness or someone directly connected to them? Orthodoxy. Did it match the core teachings of the early church? Universal appeal. Was it already widely used and accepted by communities across the world? By the late 300s AD, the list was largely locked. Scribes bound these selected texts together into a revolutionary new technology, the Codex, what we know today as a bound book with turning pages. The library had finally become a single volume.
For the next 1,000 years, the Bible was locked behind a language barrier.
It was translated into Latin, a language only priests and the elite could read. To own a Bible in your native language could get you burned at the stake. But you can't lock up a story like this forever. In the 1400s, two world-changing revolutions collided. Scholars risking their lives to translate the text into everyday English, German, and French, and Johannes Gutenberg inventing the movable type printing press. The very first major book Gutenberg printed? The Bible. What started as fragmented songs and laws whispered around desert campfires had evolved into a cultural juggernaut. It shaped Western law, inspired the world's greatest art, sparked major wars, and comforted millions in their darkest hours. Whether you view it as divine revelation, historical artifact, or literary masterpiece, one truth remains. The story of how the Bible was written and survived is just as miraculous, chaotic, and epic as the stories told within its pages.